Next on Eyewitness News, leaders of the Palestine Liberation Organization are moving toward recognizing Israel's right to exist. And a racial bias investigation is underway on Staten Island. Police search for clues in the attack that left one black shot, 2 whites beaten.
Also tonight, more fallout in the racial controversy that's hit the 113th New York City Police Precinct. Plus part 1 on Bill Butel's series, Portraits in Remembrance. He'll take us to Poland, where World War II hangs heavy on that country. And we will hear from the survivors who remember. We'll have those stories and a lot more next on Eyewitness News.
Channel 7, WABC-TV, New York.
This is Channel 7's Eyewitness News with John Marler and Rolonda Watts, Scott Clark with sports, Sam Champion with weather, and the Eyewitness News team.
Good evening. The Palestine Liberation Organization tonight, for the first time, is on the verge of recognizing Israel's right to exist. The PLO is also expected to declare Palestinian independence. Meeting in Algiers, the PLO governing body today tentatively endorsed a UN resolution declaring Israel's right to exist and agreed to discuss the issue at a Middle East peace conference. It is a sign that PLO leader Yasser Arafat has overcome stiff opposition from hardline factions.
The only option open to the Palestinians is to do whatever they can and to take whatever step that will help establish a real peace in the Middle East by having 2 states in Palestine.
I am ready to talk and to sit and talk with them in the international conference. I am going to deal with my enemies.
The PLO wants the withdrawal of Israeli forces from the occupied territories and wants the creation of a Palestinian state. In Israel, reaction is that of skepticism.
Arafat, he doesn't have the courage, doesn't have the guts, doesn't have the wisdom, doesn't have the integrity to recognize the state of Israel.
Israeli troops continue to patrol the occupied territories where Palestinians have staged a now 11-month-long uprising. If the PLO does in fact recognize Israel, that would meet one of the U.S. conditions for recognition of the PLO. So far, no comment from the Reagan White House other than the president is studying the latest developments involving the Palestine Liberation Organization. President-elect George Bush is due back in Washington, D.C. tomorrow after a 4-day post-election vacation. The vice president capping his vacation today by going to church with his wife and mother in Florida. Shortly after his return to the nation's capital, it is expected the president-elect will announce additional nominations to his cabinet. There are now 73 days until the change to a Bush White House.
Well, back here in New York tonight, police say that another racially motivated attack has taken place. This time on Staten Island. The victims, 2 white brothers who were beaten up and a black teenager who was shot and wounded. A search is on for the attackers, and the City Human Rights Commission is also said to be looking into this case. We get more now from David Novarro.
Staten Island police say 20-year-old Danny Marsack suffered bruises throughout his body, and his 17-year-old brother Dean got his nose broken after close to 20 men beat the 2 early this morning just a block from their Port Richmond home in what police are calling a racially motivated attack.
We turned the corner onto Castleton Avenue, and 20 black youths running down the street, screaming white boys, hitting their hands, come running towards us, and I knew as soon as I seen it, I said, Dean, we're gonna get jumped, and he punched me in the eye. You know, I tried covering him up, and one of them punched me in the eye, and then one of them grabbed me from behind, from the jacket, and swung me around, and then 3 guys jumped on him. Then next thing I know, I heard a gunshot.
The gunshots that Marsack heard left 17-year-old Lloyd Bryson wounded with a bullet in his side. This afternoon, his mother avoided reporters as she visited the teenager at St. Vincent Hospital. Armed with rakes and metal detectors, police comb the area as they search for clues. Detectives are unsure as to whether a bystander or a member of the gang opened fire, sending 4 to 6 bullets into the air. Nor are they sure of who the shots were meant for, the Marsacks or Bryson. The area where the attack occurred is relatively well mixed, with whites, blacks, and other minorities. Police say last night there were a number of parties in the neighborhood, and the group that allegedly attacked the Marsack brothers could possibly have come from one of them. An investigator from the Commission on Human Rights was brought in to check on any community unrest. However, the Marsacks believe this is an isolated case.
Nothing like that ever goes on like down here, you know. We're all friends around here. It's, you know, it's black, there's whites, there's everybody around here. We don't have any problems, you know.
So far, police say they are still looking for the men who allegedly attacked the two brothers and are awaiting to question Bryson as soon as doctors give their okay. Reporting in Port Richmond, Staten Island, David Novarro, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Tonight in Queens, there are more charges of racism shaking the 113th precinct. The 113 was hit by mass transfers of officers after black cops charged discrimination was rampant at the precinct. Tappy Phillips tonight details the latest shocking incident at the 113.
Police confirmed that a highly racist, bogus memo was sent to a white female officer in the 113th precinct. Officer Nancy Costello received the memo dated June 9, 1988, which was during the time Glenda Brawley had taken sanctuary in a church in Queens. Officer Costello was singled out apparently because she worked with black partners. The memo said in part, "You have been selected to be the operator of the Glenda Brawley Church Auto. You will paint yourself in blackface in preparation for a raid on the Ebenezer Baptist Church. Under the guise of delivering chicken wings and watermelon to Mrs. Brawley, you will place her under arrest. You will place Mrs. Brawley in anti-crime auto cleverly disguised as a pimp mobile. Love and kisses, Chief R.J. Johnson." Police confirmed today that the memo was part of the recent investigation into racism at the 113th precinct that resulted in the transfers of 45 officers in the past 3 weeks. Just last week, the commanding officer, Michael Collins, was also transferred. In addition, minority civilians in the 113 have complained about abuse by white officers. Notable among the civilians was a Hispanic woman who said she was fondled by white officers. The 4 to midnight shift here at the 113 was staffed by precinct veterans and by recent transfers, and it was apparent by their reactions that they are displeased by the attention this precinct has drawn.
I'm not at liberty to discuss police business.
Okay. I don't have anything to say. Thanks.
What about the transfers? You think that's fair?
No comment, ma'am. Have a good day.
Police Internal Affairs is still trying to find out who wrote the memo. So far, if anyone here knows, they're not talking. If the author of the memo is found, he or she will face departmental charges. At the 113 precinct in Queens, Tappy Phillips, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
A New York City local school board tonight could be on its way to losing control of its 34 elementary and junior high schools. New York Newsday is quoting Board of Education President Robert Wagner saying the board of District 9 could be suspended. Now, the threat comes in the aftermath of the arrest of PS 53 principal Matthew Barnwell on drug charges. Wagner said while Barnwell was frequently absent and tardy and performed poorly, the community board allowed him to continue in the job. Wagner says he's going to ask schools Chancellor Richard Green to consider a formal investigation and possible suspension of that local board.
Police and U.S. Customs agents got a tip from airport officials in Arizona about a shipment of marijuana headed to LaGuardia Airport today. Using dogs, the authorities discovered 130 pounds of marijuana stuffed inside 6 suitcases aboard TWA Flight 444. Well, the problem was that nobody ever came to claim the 6 bags, so they just rode around on the luggage carousel for about 3 hours while law enforcement officials waited in vain. 6 suitcases of pot. Got word that New York City police already knew about them.
At Montauk Airport on Long Island tonight, 2 adults and 3 children survived after their single-engine plane crashed just short of the runway. The injured were all taken to Southampton Hospital, where the pilot is said to be in serious condition. The small plane was en route from Burlington, Vermont, when it crashed about 200 feet from the runway.
California has another mass murder case tonight. It's a grisly story that is emerging as police dig for clues out in Sacramento. The cops have now found a 5th body in a serene setting underneath the trees at a boarding house that welcomed people living on Social Security. The cops are looking for the landlady, an elderly woman named Dorothea Montalvo. Now, she has not been charged with a crime, but a man who allegedly helped bury the victims has been. Police say that 8 or more people were apparently poisoned. Their Social Security checks stolen after their deaths.
A woman's right to choose an abortion was established by the United States Supreme Court in a case called Roe versus Wade. Tonight, Doug Johnson reports on the possibility the High Court will be asked to overturn that decision.
Adding heat to the already hot abortion issue debate, the Reagan administration in its final months is urging the Supreme Court to consider the appeal of the state of Missouri against an abortion clinic in St. Louis. Pro-abortion advocates fear that if the Supreme Court takes the case, there may be a possibility of overturning the pro-abortion ruling of Roe versus Wade now that conservative Judge Anthony Kennedy has joined the Rehnquist Court. In the case of Roe versus Wade, Roe was the pseudonym used by a woman named Norma McCorvey, who was a Dallas carnival worker and waitress, who in 1969 claimed she became pregnant after being raped. She won her case, but by the time it was considered and ruled on by the Supreme Court in 1973, she had already had the baby and put it up for adoption.
What they said in 1973 was that in the first 3 months of pregnancy, she may make that decision. The state may not interfere in any way with that decision, and she can have that abortion with a private doctor or a clinic or a hospital. What the court then said is that in the second trimester of pregnancy, the state may interfere, but only by setting standards that have to do with where she may have the abortion.
There has always been a question as to whether or not abortion is something that lawyers and judges should rule on. And even if the Supreme Court does take the Missouri case and rule on it, no matter which way it goes, the controversy will not go away, and it is doubtful if the ruling will change many opinions. Doug Johnson, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Last week's presidential election showed the importance of the abortion issue. In the ABC News exit polls taken nationwide, 33% of the voters said abortion is an important issue. 54% of those people voted for President-elect Bush, 45% for Michael Dukakis. In New York, the view on abortion is more liberal. 30% said the issue was important. Vice President Bush got 40% of their votes. Michael Dukakis, 59% of the votes.
When John and I return, Bill Butel will join us with the first part of his special report. It's called Portraits in Remembrance.
He's going to take us back to 1939 when the Polish cavalry tried to fight off German tanks. The invasion of Poland was Hitler's first step. The destruction of the Jews soon followed. We will hear from those who remembered, survivors of the Holocaust.